Last week, Ross Dellinger of Yahoo put out some news about this joint Big Ten SEC meeting that the athletic directors are going to have in Nashville next week. And they're going to talk about a scheduling agreement, which could become like an SEC Big Ten challenge in the early season, which sounds pretty cool to me. But they're also going to be meeting about the college football playoff. And Heather Dinich from ESPN provided a little more detail on that on Monday about what they may be talking about with the college football playoff. And I know people are kind of sick of this, and I understand this because it's crazy to think they've not played a single game. We've not seen a single bracket for the 12-team playoff yet, and they're already talking about expanding it to 14.
Mm-hmm.
And so Heather's story explained that they've got contracts set up for either a 12-team format or a 14-team format, not a 16-team format, by the way. So we can put a pin in that for a second. But Ari, the Big Ten and the SEC seem to be angling toward more automatic bids for themselves, whether that will be 3 each or 4 each.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we're in the public negotiation phase here, where they're just trying to see what the public in general can stomach before they actually go set their agenda and then go meet with the other conferences and hammer that out. Because that actually has to be decided pretty soon, because that next version of the playoff starts after the 2026 season.
Oh boy, we're going to do this today, aren't we? We're really going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 opinions right off the gate here, and then you can freak out because you're going to. But 12 is too many. 14 is too many, though it does seem inevitable. You know how I feel about it. That hasn't changed. But when it comes to the
Alabama, Georgia proved you wrong this weekend because that game was awesome, and it didn't knock either one out of the playoff. But
did you think that my premise was that football is no longer fun? Is that what you think? I think. Okay. Secondly, I think I'm okay with the automatic bid requests from these 2 conferences. Like, I know that people think I'm the big program snob, and maybe I am, but I think that throughout all this expansion and all the evolution that we've seen in the sport, Andy, that we've lost track of what the college football playoff is supposed to be, which is a mechanism for crowning the national champion. And I think that system should cater to, or at least create an avenue to, winning the national title for the programs that are serious about actually winning the national championship. And most of those, like it or not, reside in the Big Ten and the SEC. So I think it would be an epic disaster if the playoff was ever cut off from including the other conferences. You know, I'm happy that if we are going to go to a 12 or 14 team system, that everybody in college football theoretically could win the national championship if they got good enough. I think inclusion is important. But when it comes to finding playoff teams at the end of the year, we should be doing that with the chief goal of trying to find who the best team is, not to make everybody feel good. So in that sense, why wouldn't you give automatic bids to the conferences that are most serious about winning the national title? Like, is that a controversial thing, or are you with me on this?
Well, I think they would get there anyway if you just said
they
have
would
somebody pick the best teams. But here's
we're going to find that out this year, Andy. By the way, we're going to find that out this year.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, my thing, Ari, is I'm out of opinions on this because it's changing so much and so fast. And I also think there's a distinct possibility the whole economic model may change in the next few years. And this may be window dressing. And obviously, when the Big Ten and the SEC ADs meet, they're going to be talking about all of that even bigger picture stuff too. So it may be that it doesn't even matter because it may be just these guys at a certain point. Raymond in the chat, if you're going to give out 8 auto bids to 2 conferences, then go to 16. Okay, I'm going to explain to you why they're not going to 16, because this is why I'm out of opinions. I'm completely cynical on this whole thing at this point now, Ari. And you know me, I'm Mr. Big Playoff. I love the big playoff. But I'm out of opinions. They're going to 14 for one reason and one reason only. Because the Big Ten and SEC championship games, even though we've never seen it in a 12-team playoff, I can tell you right now, like when Ari and I decide where we're going to be on the last weekend of the season, on the championship weekend, One of us is probably going to the Big 12 championship game. One of us is maybe going to the ACC championship game. Somebody maybe at the Mountain West championship game. You know where we're not going? The Big 10 or the SEC. Because the two teams that are going to be playing in those games for each league are getting in the playoff. We know they're getting in the playoff. There's no drama whatsoever other than the winner's going to get a bye. But the thing is, the loser may be the 5 seed and may actually have an easier path. But if you go to 14, then the only buys available are to the Big 10 and the SEC champ. Whether you write that into the rules or you make it where the 2 highest ranked conference champs get the buys, it's going to be the Big 10 and the SEC champ. So that changes the math on it completely. Now you've added stakes to make those must-watch games again. Because remember, those are cash cow games for the leagues. They want that money. They need those games to be relevant. It makes those games relevant. That's why they're doing it. That's the only reason. That's what that is. As far as the automatic bids, I don't really care. Here's what I'd like to see, Ari, because they've thrown the 4 automatic each out, and I think that's a negotiation.
Over bargaining for what you actually want.
I think they'll take 3 because they know if there's 5 at-larges. So the way it would work with 3 is 3 Big 10, 3 SEC, the next 3 highest ranked conference champs get in, and then 5 at-larges. They would probably be 4 of the 5 at-larges. They're going to get them anyway. So they say they do that, but they say, we're trading this. We're trading this to you. And this is something I would like to see them trade for. We're trading this to you to eliminate that deal at the top that says the top 4 have to be conference champs. Because we've talked about this a whole bunch already. We haven't seen it play out because it hasn't happened yet, but it's going to play out. You should not want to be number 5 over wanting to be number 1. That is wrong. That's a dumb way to do things. And so if you take away that requirement, it eliminates the deliberate misseeding. It takes away that number 5 is actually the best spot situation.
Yeah, I think that they should do that anyway. Like that, to me, no one cares about the number of that's next to their name in the playoff. They care about what their path looks like. I think that's also been very true in the past with the NCAA tournament. You could be an 8 seed and have a much more advantageous path with matchups to the Final Four than it would be in another seed. So I think that the desire to be the 5 seed kind of throws a wrench in the entire debate of like who should be what seed at the end of the year, or like trying to play for the bye, because I do think that there is a legitimate chance that we will be talking, and probably a likelihood that we'll be talking at the end of the year, Andy, about how the number 1 seed has a harder path to the Final Four than the 5 seed. And people think that's crazy because, who wouldn't want to buy, but having a chance to play in 2 games against teams that you're favored by 23 against is probably better than having a bye and then playing a game that you're a 4-point favorite in. I think a coach would probably take that. I know injury risks and wear and tear on the body, etc. But when you're much better than the other team, you have a chance to get out of there early, rest some players, go to the next round. Like, I don't think that Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State playing, the G5 champ is going to be an overly daunting task. It might be. I don't know. Boise was good. Cincinnati was really good when they made it in the 14 field. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a pretty easy game for them. So, yeah, and the automatic bid thing doesn't really fire me up all that much because you're basically negotiating for the thing that's already going to happen anyway. Like, it doesn't matter if they're automatic or not. Like, we're looking at the season this year. It's like, how many teams in the Big Ten are in your bracketology right now? How many teams are in the SEC? Does it make up 8 of the 12 already, just naturally? And I don't know if it's going to get
7 of 12 right now, but
yeah.
I've had as many as 6 SEC teams in there. Yeah, right now I've got 2 ACC and 2 Big 12. Though I will say, like the 11 seed I had, Kansas State, that could have easily been Missouri, that could have been Utah or Arizona, it could have been Notre Dame, it could have been Ole Miss, it could have been LSU, it could be anybody.
Yeah. And Andy, I just want you to meet me halfway here on this. If we get to the point where we're in a 3 automatic bid situation with the Big Ten and the SEC, can we just stop pretending that conference championships matter anymore? Like, can we just at least do that? Can you at least meet me there?
Oh, I'm already there. I'm telling you
Okay.
how they're going to artificially create some stakes for their conference championship game.
But I'm saying like
Conference
the pursuit of winning the conference is already like
No,
whenever I do bubble
I
watch on
always thought
Sunday.
that was stupid because you had these people through the 14 playoff who said it should only be conference champs. Well, yeah, I guess if conferences were equal, but they're not. Like the SEC was always better and deeper than the other conferences. The Big Ten has now worked to catch up, and the ACC and Big 12 are now far behind on that front. Like they were
People
never
are
equal.
saying that the SEC is overrated, and that might be so, but there's nobody in the history of the planet that would ever say that winning the Mountain West is harder than winning the SEC. So you have to have a certain understanding that it's never going to be created equally. And in the playoff or in the NFL, where you have division winners in the playoffs, those teams are more evenly matched. It's not the same ball game. Like we're talking about,
but people who are fans of schools outside the SEC and outside the Big Ten want to believe it's the same thing. It's not.
Yeah. Well, they also want that system, Andy, because it then creates an easier threshold for their team to be included. Because if the only thing that's stopping a team from making the playoff and having even footing at the final tournament of the year with an SEC team is winning the Sun Belt, then that's a completely different proposition. So, I know that we get into these conversations and, things always go off the rails because you and I don't see eye to eye on this. But I do think that it is funny. And if you've seen my Twitter account on Mondays, it happens every Monday. People are freaking out about the teams they see on the bubble watch and Notre Dame and Clemson and all these teams that have lost early. And I do not think that people realize what teams are going to make the playoff this year. And I'm just going to remind you, this is what you wanted. This is what people wanted. You want Notre Dame. You want Clemson. And you know what? If Georgia loses 2 more times this year and wins the national title,
still want them to.
You wanted. That's what you wanted. So stop complaining about bad teams being included in bracketology. Stop complaining about bad teams being included in the bubble watch. The bubble watch graphic that you're looking at right here has teams like Ole Miss who lost, Kansas State who've been blown out, Michigan who can't throw a forward pass, USC who lost to Michigan, Arizona who's been blown out by Kansas State, LSU who's lost to USC, and Iowa State who's undefeated. You want to know why? Because the numbers that you're seeing represented on the first 4 out are 13 to 16 and 17 to 20. Those are the teams that we're talking about now. These are the teams that are going to be included, and it's only going to get worse, guys, because teams are going to keep losing, and they're going to keep being included because we want everybody in the playoff. This is the 12-team system, and deal with it. It drives me nuts. It drives me absolutely nuts that people don't even know what they want. Like, you're mad at me for thinking that the expansion of the 12-team playoff is stupid, that I'm not inclusion. All I care about is big teams, all the things that, I say that make you angry. Okay, that's fine. Then be happy when you see Notre Dame included, because that is what you want. Isn't that what you want? Like, am I going nuts? Like, do you think I'm crazy?
Nope. I don't think you're crazy. I think people like to complain. And I think they're going to complain no matter what. And that's just how it's going to happen. So
I almost passed out. Like I had like a lung capacity issue there because I just don't understand how a group of people can be so pro 12-team playoff and then so disgusted by what it looks like. It's like there's a disconnect between my team can be included, but then when other teams that stink are included, then it's a problem. You know what I mean? Like it's like your team when they stink being included is good, but when Notre Dame loses to NIU and they're in, then it's a problem.
Ari, it's the same. It's the same as NIL, like with the stupid people.
Yeah.
I want somebody other than Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State to get good players so they can compete for the national title.
Miami gets good players.
And Oregon use NIL money to get good players. They're cheating. No, this is what you wanted. This is what you asked for.
Because like I am from the era, the heyday of college football, Andy, where losing to NIU was a crippling blow to your chances of winning the national title. And typically it's going to work itself out. I can see this, that if you're capable of losing to NIU, then you're probably capable of losing to other teams, which will knock you out anyway. But when we're talking about this new playoff era, and we're talking about the negotiations that we have been discussing, Andy, and you're talking about 3 automatic bids and stuff, you cannot look me in the eye right now and tell me that it has no impact, no material impact in the regular season. It just doesn't. When you have 8 teams that are on the bubble watching in bracketology from the same conference, then the games inherently do not matter as much. And I know that you can point and say, well, Saturday night was a lot of fun. Well, shit, yeah, it was. Everybody likes watching Georgia and Alabama playing a thrilling game. but it wasn't the same because it didn't matter who lost. I wrote a column on Monday about how I feel better about Georgia winning the national title this year after losing. I almost vomited on my keyboard. You want to know why? Because when you're a Georgia fan or an Alabama fan, you expect excellence. You don't look at the silver lining in losses, and it's supposed to hurt. That's the point of the game. It's supposed to really hurt. And this game, I know in the past might not have counted either. Like, right, in the 14 era, both of these teams could have played this game, and both of these teams still could have gotten the playoff. They've played multiple times in the national championship game in the playoff era. I understand that. I just don't understand this completely misunderstanding of what the field that you wanted was going to look like, which is why I was screaming about it all of last year.
The people complaining about it are probably the same people who, like you, were complaining about there being a 12-team playoff. They're the people that want the BCS. They're the people that want the 14 back.
I want the 14 back. I want so.
Yeah.
You know what I want, Andy?
That's incredibly stupid. So
you know what I
want?
That's
okay.
I want the 16. That's it. So that Florida State can't happen again. I want a 16 playoff where every conference champion from a power conference champion, if they're undefeated, makes it no matter what. 2 at-larges or whatever, figure it out, and then like it be very, very small, very, very hard. Because I like a world where when you accomplish something and it's hard, it feels really good. Like that's to me, like I
like a world where I get more entertaining games, and this will give me more entertaining games. So I'm okay with that. But again, I'm out of opinions on it as they continue to evolve it, even though they've never actually even played a 12-team version.
Can you just at least meet me 30% of the way? I will walk to you. You walk to me, Andy.
No, I'm right on this.
Can you please just admit that the regular season is not as compelling as it used to be?
It seemed pretty compelling the other day.
No, the games are compelling, but the results of the games and what they mean are not compelling.
Well, here's the thing. It's not less compelling enough to justify taking away all the good games we're going to get down the road to go back to the dumb old system where we got less good games. So it's pretty simple math there.